Well, once again, welcome to the guest corner, and this time around we are topicing something about the death sentence. Of course, it has been 17 years since the last execution happened in Uganda, and our senior journalist, Gyagenda Ssemakula, is here to give us the details of what this meant, the decision that our president, our very own president, has decided, of course, putting aside his Christian values to be able to now enforce the death penalty is quite alarming. So Gyagenda Ssemakula, once again, we thank you so much for joining us on set. Tell us, what do you think about the speech from our very own president?
Well, thank you so much, Patricia, for having allowed me to be here. You just talked about putting aside his Christian values. Now we have two things here. You want to talk about Christian values, but you also have the law, the Constitution. Now, our Constitution is not based on our Christian virtues or values. So these are two different things. We have the law on one side, but then we also have the Christian values, which actually are a culture somewhere else. But when you talk about the death penalty, and I think so many people, because the president talked about it, think maybe the death penalty was actually abolished in this country, and that is possibly just going to reinstate it. But the law has been here. Death penalty is here, the sentence is here, and it has never actually been abolished. The last execution that we had was in 1999.
That is 17 years down the road.
That is 17 years down the road. But before then, I think in this regime of President Museveni, we had three happen until the 1999 was actually the third that happened. And from then on, we've not just seen one happen, but it's real, it's alive, it's there.
Apparently, according to the report, it looks like 28 offences. 28 offences merit a death penalty in Uganda. Quite a huge number compared to even the East African region.
Yes, the offences are there, but you see, the Ugandan law is a very different law. First of all, it talks about proof beyond reasonable doubt. Now, that's the burden that we have. Secondly, the law that we have here is once there is an accusation, then the burden becomes yours to actually prove that you are actually not guilty, you're innocent. But we were supposed to have had one in 2001. We didn't have it in 2001 because we're getting ready for elections. Okay. We were supposed, actually, why? Because before 2009 elections, we had an election, we had the referendum in 2000. We had the referendum in September 2000. So because of that, it overshadowed the other one. Now, in 2001, we had an election. We were supposed to have had another one in 2003. Now the death penalty would be happening actually after every 3 years from when one actually happens. But when you look at the events that have been characterizing Uganda's, especially the political setting and the political scene, you will notice that politics has actually overshadowed us so much that this actually is not there. Now, when the president talks about it now, that he wants to see some people being hanged or whatever it is, like, he's not talking about a new thing that is just going to be reinvented. The law is there, but then remember, it is still him actually who has to sign and either say be hanged or be released, the prerogative of massive.
Okay, now you're giving the presidential opinion. I want to have the Gyagenda Ssemakula Zikusoka opinion, because apparently for quite a long time you've been following all the executions issues. We want to understand, what's your opinion in this case?
Okay, well, my opinion, number one, I may want to have both opinions. The law opinion,
because we know you've always been against it.
You've
always been against the executions.
Yeah, but you see, for several reasons, or for some reasons, it is a plus and a minus at the same time.
Okay.
For example, the last 3 executions that we had, 2 people were actually executed and were innocent. Now, that's number one. Secondly, I personally managed to get somebody from death row. From death row. I campaigned and I championed the campaign to see that this man actually regains his freedom. But he was a man who was actually convicted for having killed his wife.
Did he regain his freedom? Yes,
he did. On the 13th, on the 5th of April 2013. But you see what happened is he was accused of killing his own wife, who came to court to testify and said, I am the wife of that man. But still, the law actually put him to the other side and said, you go and be hanged. Now, if this had happened, then it would have been a problem now. What happens here is we have appellate courts, of course, after the High Court. After the High Court, you go to the Court of Appeal, and when the Court of Appeal upholds the sentence, then you go to the next court, which is the Supreme Court. And when the Supreme Court says, please be hanged, then it has to be that. But remember, all these who actually qualify to be hanged have to go through all these three courts, which is actually also another big hurdle. Because you may go through the first court, and you do not have, you may not have the time to actually, it may take another 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years for you to just merit to go to another court to see whether you're upheld or whatever that happens. Now, what happens is, there was a case of Susan Chigula. It's very famous. The law students know about this. The Susan Chigula case and 416 others, they actually petitioned, and they also took this law to court and said, if I go through all the three courts, I go through the High Court, I go through the Court of Appeal, I go through the Supreme Court, and all say I should be hanged, and I am not hanged, then what does that mean? You know, you stay there forever and you do not know what really happens. Now, in that ruling, it was decided that if you're not hanged after 3 years from when the Supreme Court says be hanged, then they have to revisit the sentence. Case again. They have to revisit it, not the case, but the sentence. They have to revisit the sentence. And now you are removed from death row, from being, from waiting to be hanged, to now another sentence, a life sentence, or so many years, or whatever that happens. And with remission, of
help
course.
me understand this. If I kill my husband, Patricia kills Mr. Semirembe, and it's only one offense. Apparently, they're saying it's only 28 offenses that merit a death penalty. So I would want to understand, does that one offense, the death, contradict the 28 offenses?
Article 188 and 189 of the Penal Code Act of Uganda, that's already the case, because actually that's the biggest, I could say. But just that, it's a murder case, and you just have to be hanged. That is the penalty that we have. The other thing that we have with the Ugandan system, with the Ugandan case, is first of all, it's very archaic. It's very archaic. It's very old. It's very traditional. I do not know how the gallows look like, because I don't think they are at anybody's disposal. Nobody sees them. Even those who are going to be hanged actually never see them. The only person who sees them, I think, is the OC and the hangman himself. But they are the only people who actually have the monopoly to actually go see that. But when you kill your husband, the 28 offenses are just different criminal cases. There is terrorism, there is aggravated robbery, there is rape, there is murder, there is all the things which actually tantamount to that kind of sentence of being hanged. That's what happens. That's the Ugandan system and this Ugandan setting. Well,
Gyagenda, thank you so much for joining us. Of course, this is our guest corner, and of course, I partly agree with the president due to the offences that have been happening within the country, Bukomansimbi massacre, and it's quite interesting that he's saying that he will hang a few on the graduation ceremony for the prison wardens in Kampala, and that will be on Thursday. We're going to go for a very short break, and of course, we will return with more news tonight. Stay with us.